You know, when you think about infrastructure, I think you got to think about it more of an investment than a cost, right? Because if you're investing in infrastructure, roads, airports, bridges, tunnels, ports, you're investing in the growth of the economy. And so to the extent that you need to actually increase your deficit and not be deficit neutral, if you get a return on that investment, I think it makes sense. Now, you got to make sure it's the right type of infrastructure. And one of the biggest challenges of infrastructure has been that we've been woefully underfunding our infrastructure, and we're living on past times investments.
What's another way to do it, though? What's a way that could be, less negative on the federal budget?
I think the most ideal way that we've seen globally are public-private partnerships.
And how do those work? How does the private side of things, how do they get the recoup?
So at the Port Authority, we just did the LaGuardia Airport, which is the largest public-private partnership in the country, and we've also done the Goethals Bridge. And generally, agencies don't want to do it because they say our cost of capital is low. Why do I need private sector money?
Yeah.
And it's not about the capital; it's about the private sector discipline, the private sector innovation,
right,
the transparency, and the transfer of risk. And that's the big thing, the transfer of risk. Because if you're asking a private sector organization to come in and take the risk for cost overruns and delays, they're not going to let you go forward on a project without understanding every element of it. And when you see the public do it, the politics drive projects before they're thought out. I'm going to just give you one example. At the Port Authority, we started 2 bridges at the same time, the Goethals and the Bayonne. When we did the Goethals Bridge, we did it as a public-private partnership. So we went through it, we designed it, the scope came out, the budget was high, we sat down with our private sector partners, we value engineered it, brought it down, figured out all the issues, and they said, okay, we're ready to transfer the risk. That's coming in on time and on budget. Right. The Bayonne Bridge, politics said we want to get it done, let's move. They went out before the designs were done. It's now years over budget, delayed, and over $100 million over budget at this point.
The point being is if you've got skin in the game, you're going to be making sure that you are double and triple checking every aspect along the way.
Exactly, and it's going to insulate you from the politics, forcing you to do something, or even pretending you know what the number is.
Okay, but that makes sense from tactically in terms of how to approach some of these things. But one of the big criticisms or questions about some of these private-public partnerships are whether certain projects that may not be profitable on their own, or at least up front, are going to actually get funded the way they should be if you're thinking about this from a sort of political social structure, right?
Right. So again, you got to look at public-private partnerships in 2 parts. If it's just transferring, for example, government public assets to the private sector, I'm not sure that really is something that it really is accretive to the process. It's just sort of playing a shell game of moving numbers. But if it's in talking about actually building new, it's less about, to me, about the capital than, again, about the execution and right, transparency and knowing you get it done. Listen to this stat, which is amazing to me. If in Paris and Tokyo, it costs $500 million per mile to build a subway. In New York, our last 2 subways cost $2 billion per mile, right? 500 million versus 2 billion. That's just, and we're talking about Paris, right? We're not talking about China or someplace that you wouldn't think. That Paris's regulations, they have labor rules. And so it shows you that we have so much red tape, we have so many layers of regulation, we have so much bureaucracy, and we have, I think, a lack of discipline and accountability when we go out and build infrastructure.
That's a remarkable number.
No, it's an unbelievable number.
Who's paying for the Tappan Zee? And what's that?
The users are going to ultimately pay for the Tappan Zee, right? The users will ultimately pay for the Tappan Zee.
So we're going to get that back through the tolls.
There will be at some level of tolls, whether it's specific to the bridge or to the whole network.
Like $80 to cross it, because that
won't be that. It will be, but there's a good example though. We all need to recognize that we have to pay to have infrastructure, and I think the reason that the public doesn't like to pay for infrastructure is because every time they pay, they get delays, they never see the end product. So I think the right way to actually fund infrastructure is you don't pay until the product's delivered. If you were going to have to pay more to get through the tunnel from New Jersey to New York, and you knew you were going to be on time, have a good experience, and not worry about breaking down and being out there, you wouldn't mind paying a little bit more money to do it if the product was delivered. So don't charge them now. Have the user fees come in and be directed to new product when the product is actually delivered for the customer.